Right from the beginning, we took the decision to have extremely realistic levels based on real-world locations. For Britain, we chose London, which is obviously one of the most famous and iconic, cities in the world. The only problem we had there was the sheer amount of famous locations in the city. I mean, it's just full of historical palaces, churches, theatres, bridges, and so on. I mean, there have been a few games in the past that have had London-based levels, but they tend to only use 2 or 3 landmarks, like Tower Bridge or Westminster Parliament Building, and they give you the impression that that is the whole of the city. But we didn't want to do that. We didn't want to cheat or cut corners. So the London level in Cargasm is the most accurate photorealistic depiction of any real-world city in the history of racing games. To give you an example, the central London section in Cargasm is exactly as it is in real life.
Our company, Near Global, has spent the last 2 years working on the technologies and ways to showcase real-world cities using video game technology. That means taking the kind of data and the measurements and things we can use to actually acquire accurate data from a city environment and turn it into the kind of thing you can actually show in a video game or another interactive product. To do that, we looked at a few different technologies, and the one we found to be most suitable for this is called LiDAR, laser imaging detection and range, which lets you bounce lasers off the built environment and create a ghost-like image of the scene. It's used by surveyors mainly to measure for changes in distance and changes in movement in buildings. Our partners at ABA also use it for checking where the electric lines on railways and other kinds of things so they don't get hit the trains. We use it to measure buildings, and here's one we made earlier. It's a scan around BBC Broadcast House. And what you can see is it gives you very, very fine detail by bouncing these different lasers off, and it gives you an image of everything around the camera. You can see the scanner was mounted to a truck. You can see the truck in the foreground where it's shadowing the near pavement. But everywhere there's no shadowing, you can see very, very fine detail. Now, each of these scans is bringing off millions and millions and millions of points. And all they are is that they're points. They're not actually surfaces. It's not like a photograph. It literally is a point. And if you look at the file this throws up, it's literally X, Y, Z, which are points in space. Millions and millions and millions of them. Now, what it's good at is giving you lots of detail. What it's bad at is making it usable for a computer to actually process at the kind of speed that a game needs to do, 30 frames per second. So what we do is we take that data into another program and we clean it up. We process it, and we bring it back to the point at which we can actually get rid of all the foreground data, get rid of all the shadowing, clean it up, and take it from hundreds of millions of points here to several 100,000 points here, which is still a great deal of data. But you'll see when we get close up that actually you can see the individual points, and they're about 5–10 millimeters apart. That's close enough for us to get a sharp edge on all the different details, window frames, the awnings of the building, the shop windows, etc. And from that we can create reference materials for our artists to go and say, actually, we can now build a model from this data knowing that every surface we put in, every window we position is still accurate to the same kinds of tolerances to the real world. We aim to be between 10 centimeters of accuracy to real world buildings and extend that across a whole large area. And this is the finished model that we were looking at just now in the scan data, finished by the modeling team and put into the application. So you can see we've got all the same degree of detail that we had in that scan, but it's now just the kind of model you expect to see in a kind of an interactive application. So you can get really close into it, and now it's got color, light, texture. We've got to build a process that lets us actually create components, use those components to make these buildings relatively quickly from that kind of data. And it gives us a very, very high quality, in fact, game quality asset. It also means that we can create low quality versions of the same building quite easily as well. But of course we can do much more than that. With a model like this, we can now change the lighting on the whole scene. So rather than it being like a Google Street View where you've got a photograph which is one point in time, with this we can play with it, and we can do things like change the time of day. So.